Welcome to the Bougie Coop, the podcast for backyard chicken keepers with tight spaces, big dreams, and a flair for the fabulous. I'm your host, Lisa Ronsky, and every episode we'll talk about all the quirky adventures of raising backyard birds with a bougie twist. I'll just say it up front, I'm proudly one of those crazy chicken ladies. When I brought home my first chicks, I had no idea how much they'd change my life. These incredible birds have brought me so much joy, connection, laughter, and honestly, a whole lot of healing. Whether you're a seasoned hen tender or still daydreaming about your first coop, you're in the right place. This podcast is your comfortable, slightly chaotic guide to small space chicken keeping. So fluff those feathers, pour yourself something sparkly, and let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to the Bougie Coop. Last episode, we clucked our way through housing, coops, runs, and all the essentials to keep your flock safe and snug. If you missed it, you might want to hit rewind and catch up. Today, we're diving into the not-so-glamorous but totally necessary world of coop substrate and gear. We're talking substrates, feeders, and waterers, aka the stuff that keeps your birds comfy, clean, and hydrated. Now, substrate is a personal choice, but some people get real opinionated about it. You've got options like pine shavings. Friendly reminder, never cedar unless you're into respiratory distress. Straw, hemp, wood pellets, and even sand. Pick your flavor. There's the deep litter method, where you build up layers of bedding over time and let nature do her composting magic. It can work fine, but it's not my choice for suburbia. I've got reasons, and I'll get into those shortly. End of the day, it's your coop and your call, but I'm here to help you make an informed one. If you're not familiar with the deep litter method, let me give you the rundown. It's basically a controlled compost pile inside your coop. The idea is that your chickens poop, as they do generously, and instead of scooping it up daily, you mix it into the bedding every week. Over time, the magic of microbes takes over and starts breaking down the droppings and litter. This natural composting creates heat, which can be super handy in the winter to help warm the coop. No tiny space heaters required. Sounds great, right? And yes, when done right, it can be a great system. But here's the catch. When it's done wrong, it turns into a stinky, pest-attracting disaster that your neighbors will not thank you for. That's why I don't recommend it for urban or suburban flocks. Most of us have neighbors just a few feet away, and our coops are often closer to our homes than we'd like when the wind shifts. Sure, in the country, you can get away with a little barnyard funk. Maybe you've got goats or a few cows, and everyone expects a little livestock smell. But in a neighborhood cul-de-sac, that smell becomes your neighborhood reputation. Some folks like to use straw and not hay. We'll get to that in a second. Straw is cozy, insulates well in the winter, and is pretty affordable. But I've heard my fair share of horror stories. It can harbor mites, other creepy crawlies, and it kicks up a good amount of dust. Personally, not my jam. Now let me say it loud for the people in the back. Do not use hay in your coop. It's high in moisture, loves to mold, especially in humid climates, and moldy hay can be bad news for your chickens. It can produce mycotoxins, which at best leads to respiratory issues, and at worst, your chickens can die from it. Plus, hay is a pest magnet. Just skip it. Feed it to your bunnies or goats. Don't bed your chickens in it. Let's talk about hemp. It's become really popular now, and it definitely has its perks. Hemp does a solid job of keeping things dry and keeping smells in check. It insulates well, especially in the colder months, and if you get the kind of chopped for chickens, not the big chunky stuff made for horse stalls, you can even sift the poop out of it pretty easily. But in my experience, hemp is messy and it's not as dust-free as advertised. It's like when you buy cat litter, that 99% dust-free stuff that when you pour it out surrounds you in a dust cloud, that's hemp. I have tried numerous brands too, and it's all dusty no matter what the bag says. And like shavings, it gets everywhere. On you, your chickens, your boots, your yard, your soul. And if you've ever used shavings and thought, wow, this is a pain to sweep up, just wait till you're finding hemp fibers tangled in your garden mulch 3 months later. And if you're trying to be all bougie with hemp in the coop and sand in the run, forget it. That hemp's going to migrate into the sand faster than your chickens when you walk outside with mealworms. And that may not bother you, but it bothered me. If you've got a small suburban yard like I do, be prepared for the hempocalypse. It drove me nuts seeing little bits of hemp everywhere, in the grass, rocks, flower beds. It felt like my coop exploded, so I ditched it. Now my personal favorite? Sand, or more specifically, coarse sand or very fine gravel. It's easy to clean because it sifts like a dream, it drains like a champ, and when it gets kicked out of the run, no biggie. If you have rocks around your coop like I do, it blends right in. And if you have grass, it settles right into the lawn. Plus, sand doesn't usually trap odors the way other substrates do, and it can be a lot less dusty if you use the right kind. And that's the key. Not all sands are chicken friendly. Avoid fine-grained stuff like play sand, all-purpose sand, or paver sand. They tend to clump when wet, don't drain well, and some have additives that basically turn your coop floor into concrete when it rains. Worst of all, your chickens will eat it, and if they eat the wrong kind of sand, it can cause blockages or worse. Coarse sand, on the other hand, is pretty much a win-win. Not only is it safe to eat in small amounts, it actually doubles as natural grit, which your chickens need to digest their food. So if your ladies aren't out free-ranging on the daily, this is a great way to keep their gizzards grinding without needing to constantly supplement with store-bought grit. You'll still want to offer calcium always, but if you're using coarse sand, your birds will likely get all the grit they need just from scratching around. Efficient and low maintenance, the bougie way. So what kind of sand are we actually talking about here? You want coarse sand, something like builder's sand or concrete sand. This isn't the sand you'd find in a sandbox. It's chunkier, drains better, and doesn't clump tightly together when it gets wet. Concrete sand typically comes in two types, washed and unwashed. Unwashed is easier to find and cheaper because, of course it is, but it's also dustier than Colorado in August. It'll work, but if you're looking to keep things cleaner and you value your lungs, washed sand is where it's at. It's been rinsed to remove the finer particles, which means a lot less dust floating around your coop and sticking to your birds' fluffy butts. If you want to level up even further, let me introduce you to a little slice of Substrate heaven, premium chicken sand. No, I'm not sponsored. No, I don't get a kickback. I just really love this stuff that much. It's basically a very fine gravel, or you could call it a very coarse sand depending on which side of the sandbox you're on. The granules are super uniform, super smooth, and basically dust-free. Like truly. I was skeptical too, but once I switched from unwashed concrete sand to this, it was game over and we had a new champion. It's not cheap, so if you're rocking a full-scale farm setup, this might not be the most budget-friendly option. But for a small suburban coop, totally worth it. I've got it in the coop, in the run, and even on my poop shelf. I didn't even bother removing the dusty sand underneath, I just dumped the new chicken sand right on top. And yes, the chickens mixed it all up with their usual digging and scratching shenanigans, but even then, the difference was night and day. It's still got some dust now because of the original layer underneath, but nothing like before. If you start with the good stuff right from the beginning, practically zero dust, and I mean that. But before we throw a ticker tape parade for sand and gravel, let's talk about the downsides because yes, every substrate has a catch. First, it's chilly. Sand and gravel don't hold warmth the way hemp or shavings do, so on those cold, damp days, your poor chickens aren't going to be snuggling into it for a cozy nap. It's basically like asking them to sit on a cold tile floor. Not ideal, and that's why it's smart to install branches or perches off the ground so they've got a warmer, drier spot to hang out on when it's chilly. Second, it's heavy, like get your glutes involved kind of heavy. Hauling bags or shoveling piles of it into your coop is a full workout. No gym membership is going to be required. Your back might have some words for you later, too. And third, if you ever need to replace it, it's not as easy to clean out as something like hemp. You can't just sweep it into a trash bag and call it a day. But here's the upside. Sand is way less likely to attract or harbor pests in the first place. It's not full of organic fibers like straw or shavings, so mites don't love it. And if you do have to treat it, you can drench it with your parasite treatment, let it dry, rinse it if needed, and boom, you're back in business. Ultimately, you're going to have to choose what works best for you and your girls. Hemp, sand, dirt, shavings, deep litter. But hopefully you have gained some good info on the various substrates to help with your decision. Now, let's talk about feeders and waterers, because a bird's gotta eat and hydrate. Chickens don't just poop a lot, they also party in their food. If you feed them mash, a mix of different grains, they'll immediately start digging through it like they're mining for gold. And they are not delicate about it. Half your feed ends up on the ground and you are grinding your teeth because that stuff's expensive. Even with crumbles or pellets, some hens just live for chaos, so your feeder setup matters a lot. Here are a few of the usual suspects. Treacle feeders. Chickens step on a platform to open the feeder, great for limiting spillage and deterring pests unless you've got bantams. They just don't have the weight to trigger the opening, and if they can open it, guess what? So can a rat, which kind of defeats the whole point. Hanging feeders keeps the feed cleaner and deters scratching and poop bombs, but some chickens still figure out how to fling it around. Wall-mounted feeders save floor space and help to avoid knockovers. Pretty neat for tighter coops. However, be prepared to have some sort of pan or bowl under it because, you guessed it, feed is going to be flung. Troughs and pan feeders. These just sit on the ground. They're easy to access, but also easy to walk through, poop in, and kick food out like it's their full-time job. Bottom line, there's no perfect feeder. I tried a Tradle, and honestly, it was almost the holy grail. It kept the food dry, clean, and lasted for weeks without refilling. But I have a mixed flock of fowl, some large, some medium, and a few bantams. When it came to my dainty little bantams, they were not going to be able to open it. I wished my banties could manage, but they can't. Now let's talk DIY and super bougie techie feeders for a minute because, yes, you can get fancy with this stuff. A lot of folks are using those 5-gallon food-safe buckets with feeder ports drilled into the sides. Stick on some feeder cups, hang it up, or pop it on a pedestal, and boom, budget-friendly gravity feeder. It works most of the time. But if you've got chickens with big floppy combs and wattles, some of them are going to give you the side eye like, you expect me to put my face in there? Some birds just don't love the enclosed openings, which is fair. Now, hanging feeders with a lipped bowl are another popular choice. These work surprisingly well, as long as you hang them at the right height. Think shoulder to mid-neck level, otherwise your flock's going to start flinging feed like they're trying to seed the entire backyard. But if you've got a mixed flock with both bantams and large fowl, what's perfect height for one will be totally awkward for the other. Being bougie and not the most frugal person on the planet, I really went all in. I got a Bluetooth connected feeder. Yep, that's a thing. It links up to an app on my phone, opens and closes on a set schedule, and holds about 10 pounds of feed. The idea is that it keeps rodents out by closing access when your girls aren't eating at night. Love the concept. The execution, not great. The feeder does open and close just fine, but the food cup design, not it. My girls dig through their crumbles like they're panning for nuggets of gold, and there is a gap between the food cup and the front of the feeder. Why? I don't know. But it allows feed to fall right into the gap and straight down to the ground. And once feed is on the ground, rodents are back in business, totally defeating the whole point of the critter-proof design. I ended up having to put a pan under the feeder to catch the stuff that falls so I can dump it back in every night. Yeah, it's a pain, but it is the best thing I have found at this point to keep the feed closed up at night and all of my girls can access it during the day. This wasn't a cheap feeder, so yes, I'm slightly bitter that it's not living up to the hype. We live, we learn. And when it comes to choosing your feeder, it should match your flock's lifestyle. If your girls free range, they'll need less feed. They're out there snacking on bugs, grass, and anything else they can get their beaks on. But if your flock is confined, they're going to rely on that feeder and you'll be refilling it more often. That doesn't mean bigger is better though. If the feeder is too big and feed sits for too long, it can go stale, lose nutrients, or get infested with bugs, which is gross. While your girls might enjoy the extra protein, I don't think you want to be paying good money to feed bugs. So yeah, finding the right feeder is a journey. You might get lucky and hit gold on the first try, or you might end up with a mini collection of almosts in your garage. And guess what? The same goes for waterers too, because hydration is life and chickens are absolute menaces when it comes to keeping their water clean. In a perfect world, your waterer should supply fresh, clean water all day long, but we don't live in that world. We live in a world where chickens poop everywhere, scratch like maniacs, and knock over anything that's not bolted down. If your water is on the floor, prepare for Substrate soup and poop broth. And yes, your birds will still try to drink it. Chickens are not known for their standards. But just because they will drink dirty water doesn't mean they should. Poop-contaminated water can carry diseases, and that's a headache you don't want. The best defense? Keep it enclosed or get it off the ground, preferably both. My go-to waterers? Nipple waterers. Do the chickens love them? Probably not. It's not quite the same as dipping their beak into a nice open bowl. But do I love them? Absolutely. Because they keep the water clean and I sleep better knowing my girls aren't sipping E. coli cocktails. My two faves? Again, I am not sponsored by any of the suggestions here. I just really like these products. The CoopWorks water silo. This thing is a beast. It holds 8 gallons, can be set up to auto refill, and you can add a heater for winter. But it's also big and takes up a good amount of space in your run. And in suburbia, space is at a premium. I ended up switching it out because I don't have enough chickens to go through that much water fast enough, and stagnant water is funky water. And as I said, space matters. It's also really pricey, like really, really pricey, and not everyone is willing or able to spend that much. The other one I like is the Premier One Heated Waterer. This one's my current fave. It holds 3 gallons, has a built-in heater for winter, and it's small enough to hang wherever you want in the coop. My girls go through the water fast enough to keep things fresh, and it's a breeze to dump, clean, and refill. Total suburban coop win. Both of these require electricity to keep them from freezing in the winter. So if your winters get frosty, you'll need an outdoor safe extension cord and access to a plug. In the summer, no cord needed, they'll just work fine without being plugged in. Of course, you don't have to go the store-bought route. There are DIY watering systems you can build or buy that offer auto refill options too. If it works and keeps things clean, go for it. Whatever you choose, make sure your waterer checks a few non-negotiables. It needs to be easy to fill and clean. It lets you see how much water is left. It stays clean for more than 15 seconds and can keep your water liquid in the winter. And I cannot stress this enough, clean it regularly and change the water regularly. Like at least once a week, give it a proper rinse, more often if it looks funky. No one wants to drink out of a slimy algae trough. Not even your chickens, even though they will drink out of a poop puddle for some reason. Okay, folks, let's land this chicken train with one last piece of the puzzle for today, nesting box materials. As with everything in chicken keeping, you've got options galore. Want to toss an old towel in there? Sure. Silicone mat? That works too. Aspen fiber pads that cost more than your last box of wine? Go for it. You can keep it simple with shavings or hemp, or get fancy with those trendy soft woven hemp pads, which sounded amazing until my girls shredded them like they were auditioning for a pillow fight. Great in theory, not so much in practice, at least in my coop. They might work better in yours though. The goal is simple: soft enough to cushion the eggs and easy enough to clean or swap out when the inevitable poop happens, because yes, they will poop in there. After plenty of trial and error, I landed on my personal fave, artificial turf nest pads. They're soft, cushy, super easy to rinse off, and they dry quickly. Plus, they're reasonably priced and durable, which means I'm not constantly tossing and replacing them like I was with the Aspen fiber pads. I've got 6 pads total for my 3 nesting boxes, so I just rotate them out. Clean set in, dirty set out, hose, dry, repeat. Those fancy Aspen pads, loved the feel, hated the cleanup. My girls would fluff them like they were redecorating, and I'd find fibers all over the coop. I kept worrying someone would eat one, and once they got dirty, forget it, impossible to clean, straight to the trash. Not exactly the sustainable solution I had in mind. And because I am bougie, I sprinkle a few nesting herbs under the turf pads. Chamomile, mint, lavender, the works. Honestly, I think I appreciate the spa vibes more than the chickens do. In the end, like most things with chickens, what works best is what works for you. And your girls will absolutely let you know what they like or destroy what they don't. All right, chicken babes, that's a wrap. I hope today's episode was helpful and you enjoyed it. And don't forget the golden rule of the bougie coop. Function comes first, but beauty should never be optional. Got questions? Hit me up at thebougiecoop@gmail.com. And don't forget to follow The Bougie Coop on Instagram and TikTok for more behind the scenes and chicken glam shots. Thanks for joining me, and until next time, stay bougie.